Welcome to the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Hartley. This podcast exists to equip and inspire your heart-centered leadership. Every week, we bring interviews with some of the greatest heart sets and mindsets on the planet. I hope the heartprint of our time spent together is that it creates new possibilities for you and all those you come into contact with. If you'd like to explore what we could make possible for you, then head to abty.co.uk/connect and book in a free 30-minute call to begin our journey together. I just want to express a huge amount of gratitude to our sponsors, Exhale Coffee. I have been a big fan of Exhale Coffee since meeting Alex and the team back in 2022. Exhale is the first coffee to be sourced, roasted and lab tested specifically to maximize its antioxidant and anti-inflammatory potency. An independent lab test has shown that 1 cup of Exhale coffee has the same antioxidant power as 1.8 kilos of blueberries or 55 oranges. I'm a huge fan, and Mrs. H loves the decaf, especially because she knows that Exhale use the mountain water decaffeination process, which uses only pure glacial water from the highest mountain in Mexico and no nasty chemicals. Simply head to exhalecoffee.com/ABTY for your special offer. And lastly, before I introduce this week's guest, please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It would really help us leave a greater heartprint on this world. On episode 283, it is a joy to welcome Katia Vlachos to the podcast. Katia is a reinvention coach, speaker, meditation teacher, and the best-selling author of Uncaged, A Good Girl's Journey to Reinvention. Katia began her career as a policy analyst before pivoting into coaching, specialising in helping women to reinvent their lives and pursue their aspirations without being weighed down by guilt or overwhelm. We have a great conversation all about Katia's good girl journey to reinvention. I hope this encages your heart and your mind. It's episode 283 with Katia Vlachos. Katia, welcome to the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Ryan.
I'm really looking forward to our conversation. I have your book in my hands. Your second book is this wonderfully eye-catching pink. Would you say that's pink? Like, how do you describe that color?
Either magenta or hot pink.
I know my I need to, yeah. The man in me has just said pink.
Yes.
Yes,
It's all about
magenta.
pink these days.
100%. So the magenta style book, Uncaged, and I think I'm really looking forward to diving into this, but also your personal story, because obviously this is built on. Because one of the things we really try and encourage here at Always Better Than Yesterday is like full on expressive, heart-centered leadership.
Wonderful.
I think
Sounds
that's what we're
amazing.
all. I think that's one of the keys to life, is to find out what's in here and bring it in its fullest expression. And I think you tap on something both personal to you but universal to many, many people, which is that hearts and minds become caged. So much of
Mm,
this heart-centered leadership journey is learning how to uncage one's self. So perfect timing for a great conversation.
absolutely agree. Yeah. Sounds good.
Mm. But I think, many people go through their life not even realizing that the cage exists.
Yes, that is absolutely right. And that's one of the missions of this book, right? Is to make people start reflecting on
Mm,
themselves and asking the question, what are my cages? I ask that a lot when I speak or when I write, and
mm,
because they're they're everywhere if you look, right? And
mm,
even for the most uncaged person, there's still cages that come up. And maybe I should explain a little bit what I mean by cages, right? It's
mhm,
in my book, at least, figuratively and literally, it's all the ways in which you limit yourself. You self-sabotage, you play small, and um cages are in our minds. They're not
mm,
they're not
mm,
something outside. They're not other people. They're not relationships. They're not jobs. They're not locations. Whatever it is, they're the way we approach life, the way we think about ourselves, about the world, about our
mm,
relationships.
mm,
So We essentially create our cages and we stay in our cages, which is I find quite empowering because it means we can also dismantle them and
Yeah.
yeah, we can become aware of them and we can take them down. But what I like to say is we always have to be alert to the
Mm.
fact that there may be ways we limit ourselves that we may not realize. So,
And they can be placed there with the most loving of intentions, right? You know, when we're children, I'm reading some of your book and I'm thinking, oh man, I've got a 9-year-old daughter and she
yeah.
loves to sing. And like her singing voice is like super powerful. For a 9-year-old, she has some lungs. And every now and again, I catch myself and I'm like, Brooke, that's too much. And I'm like, I'm reading your book and I'm going, no, like, don't have that be like
Sorry.
this. Don't have this be this internal message that she's like, I'm too much. I'm too loud. I'm like, no, I want to nurture and encourage her fullest expression. Just shh. So it's so
Yeah,
much
yeah.
awareness of how these things. But I'd love for you just to take us back. How have you, through the process of memoir, connected with this younger version of Katia, and what did it reveal to you?
Right. So you may know that writing memoir is like 2 years of very intense therapy without a therapist. You're just there. Actually did have a therapist on the
Yeah,
side
yeah.
because there's a lot of processing or a lot of reliving going on. And so the memoir is about your journey, but writing memoir is a journey in itself. And there's things that come up. So again, for anybody out there who's thinking about writing a memoir, it's a wonderful experience and you need to be prepared
Mm.
that things may come up that you weren't expecting. You think you know your story, I thought I did, and actually, as you get to the end of the book, this is all new stuff.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
stuff I discover as I was writing and as I was processing. So yes, I did learn about myself, and I don't want to say what exactly because then that kind of spoils
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
ending of the book. But it was something that was so fundamental to my trajectory. It's something that, it was part of the cage that really shaped a lot of my choices in life.
Mm.
And and it changed the way I saw myself because before I understood that, I was very harsh with myself
Mm.
and very judging of myself. And understanding that really allowed me self-compassion. Like I was
Mm.
able to be kind and to give myself a break and say, okay, I understand why you did that. This was part of surviving, really, and and it's okay, and we're moving on. But it really, yeah, it really changed my relationship with myself,
Mm.
discovering all these things during the process of writing memoirs. So yeah, it's a
Mm.
very, very deeply unsettling and empowering process.
Yeah. Earlier this year, I was very fortunate enough to sit down with a lady called Maureen Murdoch. She's an incredibly wise soul. She wrote The Heroine's Journey, which is like almost like the
Yes,
feminine's,
I heard that book. Yeah.
yeah. And her latest book is called Myth Making. She's like she
Mm.
believes modern memoirists are today's myth makers. They are, there's so much about myth and the hero's journey and the archetypes woven within like memoir. So the real process of
Mm.
going to your own hero's arc, your own hero's journey, and seeing the archetypes play out. I wonder whether you've reflected on any of that aspect of your memoir. But take us back to where you grew up. You have an English voice, you have accent, but I understand you grew up in Europe. Tell us a little bit about your
Yeah.
formative years.
So my accent is a little more American
Yeah,
than
yeah,
your
yeah, yeah,
accent. And I will explain why. I mean, that's my influences actually. So I was born in Cameroon in Africa,
yeah.
actually, Central Africa, and to Greek parents. So I'm Greek by passport, and I was raised in Greece. I moved to Greece when I was 4.
Yeah.
Both my parents were Greeks, but they were kind of immigrants. They both came from, like my father grew up in Greece, but he left when he was 16 to move to
Mm-hmm.
Cameroon during the Civil War. So his mom basically sent him away so that he wouldn't
Mm.
get recruited and killed.
Mm.
So he spent 35 years in Africa. This was his home. and then
Mm.
came back to Greece as a foreigner, really.
Mm.
My mom grew up she was born and raised in Istanbul, in Turkey, so she was Greek minority there. Moved to Greece as an adult, also felt like a foreigner. So
Mm.
I guess I had this kind of migrant bug, they call it, early on.
Yeah.
And so when I was 4, we moved to Greece. My father stayed in Cameroon. So at that age, I was separated from my father. I
Mm.
didn't quite understand what was going on.
Yeah.
And that had a big impact on me that I didn't realize until my early 40s,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. Yeah.
So kind of you think I had my childhood was perfectly normal and happy and
Yes.
everything, but there was just this detail that really made a difference. But anyway, moving on, I grew up in Greece. I learned very early on how to be a good Greek girl, which
Mm.
means, excel at everything, do what's right, pathological people pleasing,
Oh.
uh, and
Which means putting yourself to
self-sacrifice.
one
And
side, right? That means not knowing that it's not about me and my wants and
yeah, it's
my
not about, yeah,
personality.
exactly. And when you do make it about you, you're called selfish, right? Or you
Right. Yeah.
feel guilty. It's a lot of, there's a lot of conditioning, a lot of beliefs you internalize early on, and
Yeah.
it's nobody's fault. I mean, it's in the air, it's in the families. This is how everybody,
Mm.
or most of the Greek girls grow up. And I know it's not just Greek, right? But this was my experience,
Mm.
and that's what I called kind of getting into the cage, right? Because that was my
Mm-hmm.
my early cage, was learning how to be a good girl. So my early decisions, like studies and my first jobs and stuff, was very much, the right thing, the
Mm.
right
Mm.
next step, the best possible thing, because I was, of course, the best student and all that stuff, right? Then I tried to escape the cage. I left Greece. I went to the US for graduate school, met my future husband there. And for a while, it was really, really promising. I was kind of on top
Mm.
of the world, doing what I loved. I did a PhD. I was living in LA. Kind of
Mm-hmm.
this was the life for me. Went back in the cage when I had to move back to Europe, which I wasn't really keen on doing. And there are certain, there's always certain choices that really shape the trajectory of our lives, and
Mm.
this was one of them. I didn't want to move, yet I chose to follow my the then husband, and I basically, I moved to a country where I couldn't continue to do the kind of work I was doing in
Mm.
the US. I was a military analyst, moved to a
Mm-hmm.
neutral country, not much was going on. And I decided to be a victim for a long, long time, and to be
Mm.
very resentful and
Mm.
unhappy. And I mean, there were moments of happiness. I had 3 kids there,
Mm-hmm.
and those were like, the highlights of my, like, the center of my life. But there was a lot of victim mentality.
Yeah.
Took me a while to get out of that. That's part of why I wrote the book.
Mm.
And at some point I decided to stop being a good girl. At some point I decided to, that being a victim wasn't really helping me move forward in my life. And I decided to take responsibility for all my choices. Again, I'm oversimplifying.
Yeah,
It
of
was a
course.
process.
Yeah, yeah,
It was
that's
a struggle and a process, but
yeah.
that led me to choose a different path, to reinvent myself, to,
Mm.
professionally, to leave my marriage, to write my first book. So
Mm.
a lot of, to become a coach. I mean, I trained to become a coach, completely changed directions.
Mm. Mm.
Also discovered my heart
Mm.
more than,
Mm.
and a sense of purpose
Yeah.
in my life. So there's a lot of beautiful things that happened, but it was a long journey of getting out of the cage, right?
Yeah, and of which you've had the courage to distill into a book. So your book now becomes that process for other people. Like I said earlier, the personal becomes universal, and anyone that's listens
Yeah.
to the words you've shared, that sees and hears and feels themselves either way you were at or on that journey, then this is a pathway with which people can look to. I say follow because it's our
Yeah.
own path that we're curating, but there are clues along the way. There are certain gates that we all go through. It just looks slightly different for each of us on our own path. But Yeah, it's very powerful. And
Yeah.
I think sometimes we can get stuck in the binary, can't we? You talk about good girl, and the opposite of that must be bad, right? And it's like, well, I don't want to be bad. And sometimes it's coming away from this duality of there's good or bad, and there's just this actually, what's the truth of who I am? What's my truth of my essence? This is something I
Yeah.
really pick up on the wording that you use a lot in your memoir is there's this feeling of Katia's soul essence that every now and again you touch back to you and you're like, huh, this is new but so familiar. I think was one of the
Yes.
words that you used. This soul essence. It's like
Yes.
she was always here, but it's new.
Yes.
It's me now. And I just wonder if you can speak into that kind of feeling of what
Yeah.
it's like to discover something so new yet familiar.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really big part of the book. And actually, I wanted to comment on what you said before about the personal and universal. Is people read memoir. I mean, it's nice to learn my story, but they really read memoir to reflect on their own story. So
Yeah.
every memoir has to have universal themes. Otherwise, it's not helping anybody, right? And there's no
Yeah.
point in writing memoir if you're not addressing universal themes. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so the themes, and I've had
Mm.
so many people reach out and say, my story is so different from yours, and yet
Mm.
the book resonated so much with me,
Mm.
which says exactly that. Yeah, the themes are, they're everyone's themes, they're universal. So just a comment on that. But yeah, there's the essence, the soul essence, of us, and then that's how we are born.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
this magnificent part in us, and then there's all the conditioning that comes on top of that, and there's all the beliefs we adopt, and
Mm.
like that's for me, it was the good girl, for you maybe something else. We all have these layers that are piling up, but we're still in there. It's just we progressively lose touch with
Mm.
that. We forget, we
Mm.
cover up, there's parts of us we don't feel are
Mm.
acceptable necessarily in our
Mhm.
current living arrangements. I definitely felt that there were aspects of my personality, my soul, whatever, that didn't have a place where I
Mm.
was living. And
And
this,
probably working because I used to work for the local police service as well, and when they well, if they were to see me now talking about heart and soul and no no
yeah,
no no
not
it
quite.
was very
Yeah,
much
yeah.
intellect, mind, strategy. I was
Yes.
very much similar to and I was a head of analyst. It was the very
Wow.
much yeah. So I see some
Yes, exactly.
similarities for sure.
Uh, exactly, right? I mean, I was a military analyst. There was no room
Mm.
for heart, right? It was like
Mm.
my asset was my brain and my
Mhm.
intellect and my analytical abilities. So yeah,
Mm.
so again, part of discovering coaching was like, oh, I can use my heart. Oh, I can use my listening, my
Mm.
empathy. Oh, these are all assets I didn't know I had, but I did, right? They were there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, the uncaging process is about removing those layers, slowly kind of
Mm.
digging beneath the layers, questioning the beliefs. Are they really mine? Is this
Mm.
path really, like, did I really choose this? Is it, what do I really want? I don't know if you were ever asked. I wasn't asked what I really wanted like to do in my life, right? It's not a thing you ask kids in my generation. There was, what you're, what the good path is,
Mm.
but I had never asked myself that. So it's asking these questions and questioning the beliefs and all that. That's how you get to who am I
Mm.
at my core. And I discovered at my core there was a lot of that 4-year old, right? Because for me that was really the moment when I transitioned into like slowly going into the cage, right? When I was when
Mm.
I was 4. So I was able to reconnect to that little
Mm.
girl, which was huge. It was
Yeah.
emotional, and it was just a beautiful experience. And we're very good friends now. Like we're very close, but
Yeah.
we weren't, right?
Yeah. Well, I really
Yeah.
resonate with what you said. I was reading it a bit more this morning, just having my coffee, and I'm just like, because my story too is that phrase or the story I associate with is abandonment, and I grew up single parent family,
Mm,
and the thing that because I've always reflected on that time, and I've never really gone. I was a happy kid. I had a I never considered myself to not have a good childhood. But over the years, as I progressively cracked open this heart, the more I've gone, oh, well, that had an effect. Like it had an effect. But
mm,
I'm like, I don't feel that younger version of me had anxieties or worries and then I read these words that you said is that the good child doesn't ask for things.
yeah,
And I was like,
yeah,
oh yeah, like yeah, for for whatever it was. As I really resonate with that because I wasn't asking for anything as a young kid. I was just, you know, whether I was appeasing a mum or who knows. I don't want to read into anything live on a podcast, but it was a very powerful one liner that just made me think, oh yeah, huh. I think about that
Makes you
some more.
think. Yeah,
Yeah.
makes you think. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I had no idea either. I mean, but I was always, yeah, like if you read it, it came from others. Like I heard it from others. Like, oh, you were fine. You were so good. You never asked
Right.
for anything, right? And I'm like, oh, why was I like that? Is that normal for a child my age?
Yeah.
Yeah, and abandonment is huge. The impact it can have, on our choices and our
Mm.
trajectory is it can be massive.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the universe continues to. If that's who we believe we are at our core, then the universe will keep sending people and experiences that reinforce that belief, right? For me, it was
Yeah,
like people who
familiar.
love me don't stick around. And what
Yeah,
happens in my life? People who love me don't. It is just like,
yeah.
wow, okay. So
Reflect.
have I created this or has that created me? And all sorts of unpicking. But there's so much. I think I think the Stoics used to say that the obstacle is the way. It's as you look into that thing, as you look into that thing that's caused the pain or the heartache or the very there's a gift there somewhere. There's an
Of course.
absolute gold. Like, when did you
Yeah.
really first start feeling the empowerment and the gift of that period of your life?
There's always a gift. I absolutely agree with
Mm.
you. And these days I've learned to ask the question like early on in the process. Oh, this sucks. This is awful. What's the gift? Like,
Yeah,
let me look
yeah,
for the gift here. Like, let me not waste time.
yeah.
The empowerment. I think understanding the what was that play? Understanding the abandonment. Really, again, I will say it. I had no idea, right? And going through my life, oh, this makes sense now. This makes sense. I found that so empowering. Um, it made me aware of the dynamics of my current
Mm,
relationships and how I was showing up and how I
mm,
wanted to show up instead, knowing what I know. So yeah, it's brought a lot of awareness. I think it's had a huge benefit on my marriage. I mean, I remarried, so
mm,
I'm very happily married right now. It really brought a lot of awareness in that dynamic. It brought a lot of awareness in how I was with my children,
mm,
because I was projecting a lot, or maybe still am to a degree. Like you always worry about what happened to you. Like you don't want
mm,
the same thing to happen to your children, right? So I was very, very sensitive about certain things. Like,
mm,
abandonment is a huge one. I would never want my kids to feel that way. I'm
mm,
overcompensating, just like I'm like oversensitive to it. So it's good awareness to have, because it's like, okay, do I really need to go that far here? Is this really true? Are my kids really going to feel abandoned just because I did? So
mm,
yeah, it really gives you a whole other level of awareness into how you show up. And
mm,
yeah, so I've really felt the impact of understanding my journey.
mm.
Had no
I,
idea when I started writing.
right,
There
what a
was a whole
gift.
other mission there.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But and that's it. It's being open and teachable, isn't it? In all situations, it's like, wow, what a gift. And I was a few years ago. I was really fortunate enough to interview Dr. John DeMartini, and Dr. John just said this one-liner to me. It just really stuck with me. He said that the purpose of love is not happiness; it's authenticity. And
Mm,
some of the ways that you document your interactions with, is it Michael? I believe it's Michael,
yes.
like Archangel Michael. Hey, it really does seem that the love that he surrounded you with has enabled you to be yourself, to be your
Yes.
fullest soul's expression. And I think you say this one liner of, he loves me for who I am, not what I do. And for
Mm.
anybody that hasn't experienced that love, that unconditional love for who you are, not what you do, what does that feel like?
So what's really important to say here is early on, again, I don't know what your experience is, but a lot of, like, it's very common that we learn that we have to do things to earn things, like
Mm,
whatever it is, acceptance, appreciation, acknowledgement,
mm,
all that stuff. We feel like we have to earn. For me, it was being excellent at everything, being the best student, being the best daughter, all that stuff, right? And and that's so wrong, because we actually deserve to be loved just because we are, right? Just because of who
mm,
we are, not because of what we do. So it's so pivotal in, it was in my life, but I also think in anyone going through this kind of deep transformation, to be seen for who you are
mm,
and to
mm,
be accepted for who you are. um it was new. It was new because and I love my parents, and they did their best, and all parents
mm,
do their best.
mm,
Well,
mm,
most parents do their best, but this unconditional thing, it's very hard. I don't even know if I'm giving that to my kids. I hope I am. Like, that's my
mm,
intention, but I find that it's really hard to find. And um so it was just, I think it's what allowed me to see myself,
mm,
being seen by somebody like as who you are. For example,
mm,
I had a lot of stories in my mind about, oh, I'm not a good parent because this and this and this. And he was like, what do you mean? You're like an amazing parent. Look at this. Look at what you did there. It's like, oh, okay. Um, Simple example, right? There was a lot
mm,
more than that. He saw the good in me. Like I said before, I just wasn't kind to myself. I was
mm,
judging myself for a lot of my choices. And he was like, you were really just surviving here. Like,
mm,
let's give you a break. But just to say, it's very powerful when somebody sees you for who you truly are,
mm,
not for who they want you to be.
mm.
Um, of course, he was not lucky in a way that I wasn't willing to to be anything for somebody else anymore. Like, once I decided, okay, I'm done with the good girl. This is me. This is what
Oh
you're
dear, look
getting.
out.
So he's had to deal with that as well. But no, but he's
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
not complaining, at least not yet. But
yeah.
no, it's very, very powerful to not feel like you have to earn love. And I don't feel like I have to do that
Mm.
anymore. I don't know if that answers the
Yeah,
question. I hope it
well,
does.
yeah, because that's the, I have a bit of a mind that says that a lot of the Western culture we have is built that way by design, is to constantly make us feel like we need to have something outside of us so that we may go to that source to feel whatever it is that we want to feel.
Mm,
Happiness in a meal or energy in a drink or, any of those things. I think it's built that way. So it's quite countercultural for us to come home and go, no, no, I'm not going to believe any of those lies. I am loved. I have all that I need, and that's something that does something different to our spirit and our posture as we show up around. Particularly, as you're courageously sharing your work and your book and coaching. Like, if we go to the world like empty, if we go to the world believing and like performing will get us the thing,
yeah.
ain't nothing gonna fill that hole. And I think that the sooner we can go on this journey of wholeheartedness, of coming home or uncaging, whatever word we want to put to it, the more we can truly come to the world with our souls integrated. Because I think it's really interesting. In Maureen's book, it talks about the arc of the heroine. If she disconnects from her soul, her body will scream and shout
Mm.
to the point, to the point, it will go, "Oh, my back's gone out, or I've got an injury." And how funny that appears in your story too.
You think? So yeah, yeah, of
Yeah,
course, right? I mean, our bodies, what is it? They whisper before they scream or something. And of course we never listen when they whisper.
yeah.
So yeah, of course I had all sorts of physical manifestations of being disconnected and being
Mm.
inauthentic.
What was your
So
gateway
yeah.
back?
Again, what was my
What was your
gateway?
gateway back to connecting body and mind?
Um, I think it started with coaching because I got a lot of insight
Mm,
into my journey, into my own patterns and my conditioning and all that. So that really helped start the healing process. I mean, again,
mm,
as you know, it's a process. It takes time. So
mm,
yeah, it started with the coaching. I mean, I still had a lot, and if you read the book, I still have had a lot of physical manifestations as I was going through my divorce. It was a really
Mm,
tough time. And I think just, like being kind to myself, started meditating. Yoga was
mm,
a big part of the healing
mhm,
process as well. So, all these making these practices part of my life. And at this point I meditate for like, I think it's 7 years every day. And it's really, and I trained to be a meditation teacher and all.
mm,
It's just really brought so much awareness
mm,
and kindness and self-compassion and peace and healing. So yeah, it was not one thing, but I think it started with getting awareness, gaining this awareness into my own soul, and what
mm,
was really hiding underneath. And I'm not saying I unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, very connected mind and body. So
mhm.
the minute I stress, things will come up. Like I got 3 vertigo attacks the week of my book launch. It was like, I was like, you cannot do this to me,
Yeah.
body.
Yeah, yeah.
But the
The
body was
the
like,
body's
you
gone
need
to
to
fight
take
or
it
flight.
easy.
Is old patterns, yeah, old patterns. Yeah.
You need to take it easy, Katia. So I try to listen as
Yeah,
much as
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
can.
yeah.
And actually your previous guests who wrote a book
Yes.
about the nervous system, I found that book brilliant, and I go back to it now regularly. Okay, how
Yeah,
can
yeah,
I
yeah.
how can I regulate my nervous system now? So
Jennifer
so
Mann
yeah,
and
this
Carden
is
Rabin. That's very
exactly,
interesting.
yeah. So many beautiful practices out there these days. But yeah, and there was something else, but it will come. It will
Good,
come. You
it will
said
come.
something right. Yeah.
You, I think your yoga. There's an interaction in the book where you're with your yoga teacher, and she's just like, "You're a lioness." She's like,
Yes.
"You're a lioness," and I think sometimes that's a tip of the hat to needing good people around us who can speak the truth back into us, is to remind us who we are.
Yeah, it's what I said about being seen, right? And how
Yeah,
powerful it is. If somebody sees something, they don't have to see the whole thing, but like they see something in you, it's like, oh yes, I remember that.
yeah, yeah,
Sometimes
yeah.
we need that. I mean, that, and that's what I wanted to say before is you mentioned soul integration, and being okay without the outside, and that's
Mm,
such a big insight I got, and also a big practice for me is like validating myself, like
mm,
liking myself, like being grateful for where I am, even if I'm not there where I want to be yet. Doesn't matter. Like I'm super happy now, and I got my own back. That's um, one of my coaches, a super wise woman, always says that you have your own back. It's nice to get
mm,
the
mm,
appreciation from
mm,
outside. It's wonderful, um, but you don't really need it if you have,
mm.
if you're solid inside. And
Yeah.
that I have found that quite transformational. And I come across it all the time with my clients. They're like, I'm so reliant on external validation. And if I don't get it, what happens, right? I mean, we have no control over that. We have
Mm,
full control over how we treat ourselves,
mm.
especially during tough times, and how we love
Yeah.
ourselves through everything. So yeah.
I think it's a very big misconception because the instinct like you got was, oh, it's selfish. The response when you start doing that is selfish. And I think that again is the this or that mentality. And, my experience and the things that I've, journeyed with other people on is that actually a better me is a better me for you. So it is actually
Mhm.
a net positive. When I look after me, I like particularly as parents and partners as well, like they can, I've once heard that our family can push all our buttons because they're the ones that installed them. So
Good one.
yeah, so when they're going to push your buttons, actually, if I've been working on me, I'm able just to stay calm and be able to deal with that situation because I've been working on me. I've been putting
Yes.
myself, this paradox, right? I didn't like this feeling. I was always going to put other people before me. But when I put myself
Mm,
first, it's actually, I'm putting we first. I'm putting a better me forward for you. And the minute
yeah.
that sort of clicked for me, it was like, okay, cool. I need to do these things so that I give you a better version of me. Not because I have to, not because I'm seeking anything, but because that's what comes forward. That's the
Yeah.
natural fruit of the environment I've created for me. And yeah, I think that's quite empowering for people to just break free of that it's me and selfish. And actually the
Yeah.
word I prefer to use is self-fullness. In the overflow I may serve from fullness. Like that's so
Oh,
such
fullness.
a
Yeah.
different, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because it's not only empowering, it also takes away that guilt, right? You know, putting yourself first. It's we're taught it's not the right thing to do. And
yeah,
there's again, I deal a lot with women and with especially with mothers, and that guilt is always present. You know, when you think about prioritizing your needs or
yeah,
your wants, especially your wants. Oh my God, that's you know, it just shows up everywhere. And
yeah,
it's what you said. It's if you take care of yourself, you naturally, organically are showing up for others
yeah,
from that place, and it's
yeah,
such a different quality of presence
yeah.
for your
and
loved
and there will
ones.
be some people that do not get to that heart space, and they will do themselves from a guarded, protected space, which is it's me and I'm trying to do boundaries, but I'm not very good at them, and that will then appear selfish because it is me or you. If I'm living in the
Yeah,
world of or me or you, then of course it's going to other people who are selfish because I'm so guarded
yeah,
and protective of my time, and you can't have my last piece of pizza because I need it. You know, when it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
me then you, not me or you, but me then you, it's such a different, we don't work in the me or you. It's actually we all benefit, we all win.
Yeah, I actually I love what you say, and it makes me think also. I mean, does it also have to do a little bit with feeling like, oh, you have to protect this because it's threatened. You have to protect your space because it's constantly threatened, and that to me
Mm,
kind of indicates a bit more like, oh, I'm the victim or things are happening to me. Whereas, no, I'm empowered and this is my space, but it's our space, you know, because again, we all show up for each other. We all do our best here, and I
yeah.
don't need to struggle with the boundaries because again, this feels more natural, what you're describing.
Well, it's all it's again what I said about the family installing our buttons. Quite often, if we talk about soul contracts, they're the very people sent here to reveal the things we need to journey back home with.
Mm,
They're the ones that I speak to many men all the time about how if they're having struggles in their marriage, isn't it funny how the thing that they want from their wife is the very thing that they're playing their role perfectly, because that which you are seeking from another is the invitation for you to give that to yourself.
yes,
Like,
100%.
isn't
Yeah.
that like a sadistic paradox? Isn't it just like how life's worked? Just like, oh no, because you have these childhood experiences, you feel like there's a lack of love in a particular area, so you become an adult that seeks that, and you think, well, I'm gonna get that from my partner, and when we don't, it's like, oh,
And it
oh,
doesn't occur. It doesn't occur to us we can actually give that to
mm,
ourselves first,
what a
right?
gift!
It's
What a gift! They're all our angels. They're all our teachers.
yeah. Oh, everyone is our teacher. I love that. That's another favorite phrase
Mm.
of mine. Yes, absolutely. There's the gift and there's the teacher
Yeah, yeah. And there's the
everywhere.
student when they're ready.
Yes, so true. We covered all the all the Buddhist faces here.
100%. Yeah, yeah. I wasn't always ready, but yeah, as soon as you are, it's like, okay, now you're ready. Have some lessons.
Yes, 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 100%. Yeah.
So
But
one
yet,
of
yeah, go
go
ahead.
go ahead, go.
No, no, I was going to say, but just the idea that you can give something to yourself that you're expecting from outside, it does not occur to us, right?
Mm,
It's yeah, like you said, you have to be ready. You have to go through a journey sometimes to get to that. But yeah, go
mm.
ahead.
No. Yeah, and I have a coach as well, and much of my coaching practice is like you have to write it down. You have to write it in such a modern technology way where we're writing on computers, and actually the physical handwriting with a pen. He's just like, you need to
Mm.
write some of these down. And I just have some little prompts here right in front of me, so if anyone that's listening, they won't be able
Ah,
to see, but it's just little reminders in my prompt cards. This one just says remember who you are. Another one is just reminding myself that what I'm responsible for, what I'm not responsible for, or reminding myself that I'm not everybody's teacher, and reminding myself that I am loved, and just some simple things that go,
yeah.
don't forget, remember who you are, because life will present me opportunities that will test, hey, how well do you know yourself? how much
Yep.
can, how committed are you to being who you are? How easily can you be talked out of that heart-centered nature that you keep talking about?
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, it reminds me of what I said before about, being alert for your cages because they're going to show
Mm,
up, right? Like, so
yeah.
yeah, it helps to write things down because you never know, when they're going to be really like on point on a certain day. So I like what you do. Maybe I'll try that as well.
Well, I can't say I'm sat here with a discipline. I do this all the time. I'm definitely journeying in this. Yeah, I've put myself in the position of student again. Well, I say I'm a lifelong learner, but this feels different. This period of my life is a very different. It's almost like I'm taking a very much spiritual warrior kind of approach to life now. Not just the mindset and the heart set, but like full on embodiment
Mm,
of the momentary expression of divinity that we are. So yeah,
beautiful.
it's a challenge.
Yeah.
It's fun. One
Well,
of the,
and beautiful, I'm sure, at the
yeah,
same
100%.
time.
Yeah, 100%. But the light gets in where the cracks are, aren't they? And either
Yeah.
we open that cage of our hearts intentionally, or life will send us some opportunities to it'll inevitably crack it open, right?
Right. So
It's
don't you
open
want
in
to
one way
be
or
like,
another.
don't you want to be in charge or proactive about it?
Hundred
Yeah.
percent, hundred
Yeah,
percent, and that takes courage, doesn't it? Courage
for
to
sure.
look. One of the things that's very clear through speaking to you, even at the start, is this identity of being an expat. There's this migrant. That's kind of a gift, but also a bit double-edged sword, isn't it? Because if you're always an expat and you soak into that identity, well, I guess where do you belong?
So yeah, so in my previous life as a coach, I was an expat coach. So I worked a lot with people making these kinds of transitions, how
Mm,
to decide, how to prepare, how to go through the move, and especially how to feel settled. And one of my favorite concepts that I talk about and I wrote in my first book is the concept of home.
mm,
And home can be many things. Actually, it's not just a place.
mm,
When we and when you're an expat, when you're a global nomad, you learn that home becomes less linked to a physical location and
mm,
it becomes more abstract. And it's either, it can be a feeling, it can be nature, but not like a specific location. For me, it's like being
mm,
near water, for example,
mm-hmm,
anywhere. I can be near the ocean, wherever it is, and I'll feel at home.
mm,
Or especially becomes about people, the people in your
mm.
life. So home is kind of like an evolving concept. So where do I belong? I belong with my people. I belong with my family. I belong with my tribe of people who are spread out around the world. Right? I mean, I
Mm,
have a beautiful tribe here, but I also have people
yeah.
from all my life basically. And home is also it's in your soul. It's within.
Mm,
It's
mm,
something
mm.
you carry with you wherever you go. And
Yeah.
again, that has evolved over my lifetime, obviously. Right? And
Yeah.
the more
Yeah.
awareness there is, and the more connection there is within. But yeah,
Mm,
it's a different sense of belonging than
mm,
the traditional, oh, I belong to this society, I belong to this country. Yeah. I mean, I'll always be Greek, right? I always feel like I'm Greek, but is
mm,
that, my only sense of belonging? Absolutely not. And it's okay to have
mm.
many different dimensions
Yeah.
to that.
That's
Uh,
powerful. I've had a friend of mine on my heart for this whole conversation. I'm definitely going to send her this conversation. Her name is Zoe.
uh-huh.
She is a Greek expat living in the UK, so she lives down the road from me.
Ah,
She's going to really resonate with this episode, your whole story. That there's going to be so much that she resonates with, and even when you talked about water, I think the water around her. I think she's off the island of Skiathos, and
oh, beautiful.
yeah, and I think one of the ways that I think she's brought home is she's her business is all about bringing Greek products or Greek authentic products to the UK. So she sells all these
Nice.
wonderful Greek food products as her way of bringing Greek sunshine for other people to experience, and that's been one of her ways of creating home as a Greek expat. It's almost like, all right, if I can't get, let's
Yeah.
bring Greece with me. Let's allow other people to experience the Greek sunshine.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, like, again, the other thing I love to talk about is like, how do you create that home? What do you need to feel at home?
Yeah.
And then how can you be intentional about creating it? And that sounds like Zoe is
Mm.
doing exactly that. She's creating what she needs there. So that's beautiful to hear.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And on the path of uncaging, you know, I hear and resonate so much with the just the external voices, the external expectations of people, significant people in lives that have just gone. Because Zoe won't mind me saying, everybody that knows Zoe recognizes her big heart, her sunshine. And I think, you know, I'm going to send her this book and gift it to her because it will be another little nudge to help her with her own process of uncaging. So thank you for helping me be part of that conversation with her.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing
Mm.
my story with her.
Mm.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
Is there anything from the book that I've not asked you about that you'd love to share?
Um, Trying to think. Well, I don't know if it's, well, it is part of it is in the book. There's something that also came up for me recently as I'm telling the story, and I'm very open.
Mm.
And there was an article that went out in the Telegraph that was pretty vulnerable and
Mm-hmm.
intimate. And when you are reinventing yourself, when you are opening up about your life, when you are changing, not everybody's going to like it. And that's something that's it's a very common fear that holds a lot of people back from this process of reinvention, from taking the leap, from changing their lives, whether it's professional or leaving a relationship or whatever it is.
Mm.
And just wanted to bring that out because it's going to happen. It's bound to happen. Not everybody's going to be on board. Not everybody's going to support you. Not everybody's going to not feel threatened by this
Mm.
change.
Mm. Mm.
And that's just the natural part of it. It means you're growing and changing, and it also means there will be other people you're going to attract who are much more aligned with you, with
Mm.
your
Mm.
values, with what you're here to do in this world. And
Mm.
and so it's a sort of, the process of reinvention is also sort of social decluttering in a way. Yeah, I don't know, decluttering sounds, that sounds a bit negative, but it's more like, realignment is actually a better word for it.
Yeah.
Um,
Sometimes it's our courageous expression will invite the very situations of judgment. You know, I think Brene Brown talks about there is no courage without emotional risk and vulnerability, right? The expression of your
mhm.
heart, the sharing of your voice and truth and who you are, being authentic. It cannot be anything but vulnerable because of the emotional risk and exposure you put yourself there. And
Yeah.
sometimes we have to build the character to be able to sustain that level of pressure, to not come out of the cave and go, nope, too scary, go back in.
Yes.
That's enough for
Yes.
today. And it's all an opportunity for us to just, you know, solidify that character with who we choose to be. You know, because
Yeah.
that
Well,
I think that article that you wrote, I haven't read it myself, but the you know, I'm wise enough to know that the message isn't, whilst it might not be for me, it might be for someone. Do you know? And like the idea of divorce, I've been with my wife since I was 15. Like that's not the
wow.
life I choose to live. I choose in this lifetime to try and do whatever I can to be the first uh couple in my family tree for all of I've known that actually might stay together forever.
Yeah,
That's my
that's
personal goal.
beautiful.
Does
Yeah.
it mean that other people, I think you wisely said this on your Instagram, you weren't advocating for that, you were simply expressing the choice and letting people
Yeah.
know to have it. And it's like we have to remember not everyone's going to come to the world with that level of maturation and maturity, but you know, for those people that need to hear whatever it is that you have to share, it's healing, it's empowering, it will feel like oxygen. It just means we have to narrow the idea of that everybody in the world resonating with our argument to going the one who
Yeah.
needed to hear it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think when that happens, you're so much better able to deal with the judgment, or actually not deal with it and just let it be, because people judge for their own reasons. They usually has nothing to do with you, right? I mean, you trigger them for some reason, but it has to do with them. But then you double down on connecting, to here, to your heart, and to why you're doing this, for the people who need to hear it, for
Yes.
whom it's going to be useful, people who, I don't know, in that case of the article, people who may feel trapped in their relationships and too scared to leave. And I've had a lot of them reach out, for every judgy comment, I've had people being like, thank you for writing this. It really encouraged me, or it really made me reflect, or I have left and feel so guilty. And thank you for, talking about the guilt, things like that. And so, connect to why you're doing this, and also the fact that you're safe here. And that
Yeah.
was, I mean, I went a bit through a roller coaster because I'd never gotten hate comments before.
Yeah.
So it was unsettling, and I did feel, momentarily unsafe, even like in my body. And I was like, okay, now I need to kind of double down on my practices and on calming my nervous system and feeling safe here and remembering why I'm doing this.
So I know why you got
Um,
attacked, and then it's got
ha!
nothing. And I don't know why you got attacked, and I know it's got nothing to do with you. Is because so Gordon Neufeld, who co-wrote a book with Gabor Mate called "Hold On to Your Kids," most incredible parenting
Yes,
book
I've
I've
heard of that
ever
book.
read.
Yeah.
So Dr. Gordon said to me, on the podcast, he said that bullying is about when people display the level of vulnerability that person was told that they can't display. It's like they're not attacking you, they're attacking the
Interesting.
vulnerability that you're displaying because they've been told they
Yeah.
can't. It's not safe for them to be that. Therefore, anyone
Yeah.
at any time that's displayed in other people, that's like the schoolyard bullying thing. But it applies to us as adults. So you got attacked
Mm.
because you displayed a level of vulnerability and authenticity that those people have been told that they are not able to display.
Yeah. That's fascinating, and
It
makes so much sense.
and it makes it so
Wow.
much less personal because it's about what you represent as opposed to who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. But that's fascinating. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm.
That really, yeah, that really resonates.
You have
Yeah,
displayed
also,
the level
yeah.
of vulnerability that they are not able to, they've been told is not safe for them to do.
Yeah. And they might want to, like, deep down.
100% was the obstacle's the path, right? It's something in that, right?
Yeah.
Why am I getting triggered about someone writing an article? Maybe there's something for me to go look into here. What does it reveal
Yeah.
about my own heart qualities, my values, or whatever it is? You're
Yeah.
teaching them.
Makes you think, and it's not comfortable always. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anyway, but what I want to say is you just keep going. There's a reason why you're doing this, and you just keep going and feel good about it, and learn.
Mm,
I learned a ton.
and we continue to
Yeah.
do. Um, I have a word here at Always Better Than Yesterday. It's called Heartprint. The word really symbolizes the ripple effects, the legacy of our work, of our interactions, the essence of who we are in this lifetime, the possibilities that we create for others, our clients, our children, and all those that we come into contact with. And Katia, I just would love for you to take a moment to think about what you hope your heartprint will be. What do you hope the legacy of your book, your work, your life's work?
Mm,
What do you hope your heartprint will be?
I think you might guess what I'm about to say. My heartprint would be to help as many. Well, it started as women, honestly, because that was my experience, but actually as many individuals as I can to lead uncaged lives. So, and that includes, that starts with seeing the cages and then choosing to dismantle them, to break free from them. So as many people as I can, who hear that message and look within and can decide to lead the uncaged life they deserve, and then that will be, I hope that can be my legacy. That's what my heart desires.
Beautiful. You steady on with those desires.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm doing my best here.
What are you doing with those? Who said you could have those?
Yeah, there you go. How dare I?
Yeah, brilliant. I love that. How can people connect with you? Where can they find out more about your work and get in contact?
So my website, katiavlachos.com, very easy. It's just my name. I love to connect with people on LinkedIn. I'm most active on that platform. Also on Instagram. Again, if you just put Katia Vlachos, you'll find me. And the book is, it's on my website. It's uncaged.net, or just Google Uncaged, or
Mm,
wherever you buy books.
love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your heart with us. I'd be honored if you'd leave us a final thought from your good self.
Thank you, Ryan. Final thought. It's never too late to write your new chapter. It's never too late to change your story. It just takes like that one first step, and everything builds from that. And I say that because I often hear people saying, "Oh, I'm too old for this," or "Yeah, at this stage, no, it's if I can do it, you can." And I see people. I was in my 40s. I see people in their 60s, and they're changing their lives. So it's in our power.
Love it. Katia, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Ryan. It's been wonderful chatting with you.
Hey, my friends, thank you for making it to the end. I hope that our time spent together today has left you a little bit better than before you push play. I'd really appreciate if you just took a moment to leave a review to allow me to meet more people where they are and hopefully leave them a little bit better too. If you're curious to know how I, through Always Better Than Yesterday, can serve you, your team, your organisation, then head to alwaysbetterthanyesterday.com to connect. And while you're there, let me know one or two things that you're going to do as a result of listening to this conversation. I absolutely love hearing your thoughts, your reflections, and the things that this spark in your own heart and mind. If you want more insights from my heart and mind, I do send out short episodes on a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday and Friday, and again, I hope that they serve you well. I appreciate you listening. I'm Ryan Hartley, host of the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast, a podcast for heart-centered leaders just like you. Keep leading, my friends. Always love.